observed how particular messages appear to show up at precisely the perfect time. From the countless voices demanding your focus, one phrase, one concept, one unanticipated meeting suddenly appears before you as if it had been anticipating you the entire time. Maybe you consider it coincidence. Maybe you name it fortune. But there are instances in life when something inside you gently suggests that this is unique. This video only discovers you when something substantial is approaching. Not due to magic or fate in the manner people commonly picture, but because your awareness has at last become prepared to acknowledge what has eternally been present. Most people invest their lives looking for spectacular signs. They desire the universe to reveal itself with thunder, with certainty, with undeniable proof. Yet the most profound transformations seldom start with fireworks. Snorts, they start with silence. A strange sensation that the life you've been inhabiting no longer suits. A mounting discomfort with patterns that previously felt secure. An inexplicable attraction towards something you cannot yet name. Initially, it feels perplexing because the mind favors recognizable patterns. It desires predictable solutions. But life has a remarkable tendency of jolting us conscious precisely when we grow too settled inside our own delusions. You may believe that what lies before you is another accomplishment, another connection, another acquisition, another endpoint. But frequently, the largest event awaiting you is not something that occurs outside of you. It is the instant you start perceiving differently. The world itself may stay exactly as it was yesterday. Yet everything shifts because the eyes through which you witness it have shifted. The prison was never the barriers around you. It was the narrative you accepted about yourself. When something meaningful nears, there is frequently an odd tension inside you. Part of you feels energized without understanding why. Another part grows worried, attempting frantically to cling to what is familiar. This inner struggle is natural. Every transformation requires something of us. It requires us to relax our hold on an identity that has grown too limited for who we are evolving into. The caterpillar does not know it is preparing to fly. It only knows that the old way of existing can no longer continue. Think about how many times life has surprised you. Looking back, the moments that influenced you most were likely not the ones you thoughtfully planned. They arrived unexpectedly. A conversation altered your trajectory. A failure unveiled your strength. A goodbye opened the door to a life you never would have chosen consciously. What seemed to be an ending quietly became a beginning. At the time you resisted it. Later you realized it was exactly what needed to happen. The mind constantly asks, what is coming next? But life rarely answers that question directly. Instead, It prepares you for what is coming by changing you first. Imagine trying to pour the ocean into a small cup. The cup must become larger before it can hold more. Likewise, before life gives you greater responsibility, greater peace, greater understanding, or greater freedom, it quietly expands your capacity to receive them. That expansion often feels uncomfortable because growth stretches every assumption you have about yourself. Perhaps recently you have felt that old habits no longer satisfy you. Conversations that once entertained you now leave you empty. Goals that once consumed your attention suddenly seem meaningless. This is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It may be the clearest indication that your consciousness is outgrowing its former boundaries. The old self cannot accompany you into every chapter of your life. Some versions of you must be lovingly left behind. There is an interesting paradox here. The more desperately you chase extraordinary experiences, the further they seem to move away. Yet when you become fully present with this ordinary moment, life begins revealing extraordinary depth within it. Reality has always been astonishing. We simply become too distracted to notice the sound of rain, the rhythm of breathing, the expression on a stranger's face, the stillness between two thoughts. These simple moments contain more mystery than the restless mind can comprehend. So if this message has appeared before you today, do not immediately ask what external event is about to occur. Instead, ask what part of yourselves is ready to awaken. Ask which fear has finally become too heavy to carry. Ask which illusion is beginning to dissolve. The greatest turning points often begin invisibly, long before anyone else notices a difference. A seed beneath the soil gives no public announcement before it breaks open. Yet everything depends on that hidden moment. Trust that not every unanswered question requires an immediate solution. Not every uncertainty is a problem to fix. Sometimes uncertainty is simply the doorway through which a larger life enters. You are not being punished by the unknown. You are being invited into it. And perhaps the biggest thing that is coming is not a new circumstance at all, but a new way of seeing. A quiet realization clears throat that what you have been searching for has never been separate from the awareness that is reading these words right now. It is remarkable how the mind immediately wants to categorize every change as either good or bad. The moment uncertainty surfaces, it starts calculating potential results, contrasting them with the past, attempting to shield itself from disappointment. Yet life has never followed the orderly plans of the thinking mind. The river does not ask where every curve will lead before it continues flowing. It simply moves because movement is its nature. In the same way, your life unfolds through participation, not prediction. The more firmly you grasp certainty, the more you oppose the very current that is attempting to transport you toward a deeper understanding of yourself. There comes a point when you realize that many of the battles you have been fighting exist only because you believed you had to control every detail. You thought peace would arrive once everything was organized, once everyone understood you, once the future became secure. But peace is not the reward for perfect circumstances. It is what remains when you stop demanding that life conform to your expectations. The strange thing is that as soon as you loosen your grip, opportunities begin appearing that were invisible while your hands were clenched. This is why periods of confusion are often more valuable than periods of certainty. Certainty can become a prison because it convinces you that there is nothing left to discover. Confusion, on the other hand, keeps the door open. It humbles the mind. It allows new possibilities to enter. When you admit that you do not know exactly where life is taking you, you become available to experiences far greater than anything your imagination could have designed. Perhaps what is approaching is not a dramatic event, but a quiet shift in the way you relate to yourself. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop seeking approval from people who are equally uncertain about themselves. You begin noticing that the voice constantly criticizing you is not your deepest self at all. It is simply a collection of old beliefs, borrowed opinions, and inherited fears repeating themselves. Once you see this clearly, those thoughts lose much of their authority. They may still appear, but they no longer define the direction of your life. Notice how nature never rushes. A tree does not become frustrated because it cannot grow an entire forest in a single day. The sunrise does not apologize for arriving gradually. Everything meaningful unfolds through its own rhythm. Yet, human beings often expect transformation overnight. We demand immediate answers, immediate success, immediate clarity. In doing so, we overlook the quiet intelligence of gradual change. Every small realization reshapes your future more than one dramatic breakthrough ever could. There is also something remarkable about endings. We often imagine they are moments of loss, but many endings are simply life removing what no longer belongs in the picture. Imagine trying to write a new story while refusing to turn the page. Eventually the page becomes too crowded for anything fresh to emerge. Sometimes what feels like emptiness is actually space being prepared. Space for new relationships, new perspectives, new creativity, and a version of yourself that has been waiting patiently beneath years of unnecessary expectations. You may even notice that certain people naturally drift away during these seasons. There is no need to resent them or chase after what is leaving. Every relationship teaches something, but not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people accompany you through one chapter because that is exactly where both of you needed to meet. When the lesson is complete, life quietly rearranges the paths. Holding on too tightly only creates suffering, while letting go allows gratitude to replace fear. As your awareness expands, you begin recognizing that the most powerful changes are almost invisible at first. No audience applauds them. No headlines announce them. They happen in ordinary moments. When you choose understanding instead of anger, presence instead of distraction, curiosity instead of judgment, those quiet choices accumulate until one day you look back and realize you are no longer the person who once lived in constant fear of the unknown. Without forcing anything, without becoming someone else, you have simply remembered a deeper way of being that was present all along, patiently waiting beneath the endless noise of the thinking mind. If something immense is approaching your life, it may not announce itself with certainty. It may first arrive as a question that refuses to leave your mind. A question has a peculiar power because it breaks the illusion that everything is already understood. The moment you begin questioning who you are, what truly matters, and why you have been living the way you have, the old structure of your identity begins to loosen. This can feel unsettling because the personality prefers familiar answers over living mysteries. Yet it is precisely in those mysteries that the deepest freedom is found. Many people imagine awakening as gaining more knowledge, collecting more ideas, or discovering secret truths hidden somewhere in the world. But there is another possibility. Perhaps awakening is not about adding anything at all. Perhaps it is about removing what was never yours to begin with. Layer after layer of borrowed opinions, inherited fears, social expectations, and imagined limitations slowly fall away until what remains is something astonishingly simple. Beneath all the complexity, you discover an awareness that has never been anxious, never been incomplete, never been separated from life itself. This awareness has been quietly observing every stage of your existence. It was present when you were a child. Before the world told you who you should become, it watched as you celebrated your victories and endured your disappointments. Thoughts changed, emotions changed, your body changed, your circumstances changed. Yet the simple fact that you are aware has remained untouched through it all. This is the part of yourself that cannot be damaged by success or failure, because it exists before either one appears. The strange thing is that the mind spends so much energy trying to improve the character it has created that it forgets to notice the awareness watching the entire performance. Imagine an actor becoming so absorbed in the role that they forget they are standing on a stage. The drama becomes terrifying because it feels absolutely real. But the moment the actor remembers who they truly are, the same performance continues without the same burden. Life does not necessarily become easier, but it becomes lighter. Perhaps lately you have felt as though you no longer belong in places that once felt comfortable. Conversations seem repetitive. Old ambitions lose their shine. You cannot explain why, and because you cannot explain it, you may wonder whether something is wrong. Yet this feeling often appears before a profound shift. The shell always feels restrictive just before it breaks. What once protected you eventually becomes what limits you. There comes a time when safety itself becomes the greatest obstacle to growth. Notice how often fear disguises itself as practicality. It whispers that you should wait until everything makes sense. Wait until every risk disappears. Wait until every doubt is resolved. But life has never operated that way. Every meaningful step contains uncertainty. The artist begins painting without knowing the final image. The musician plays the first note before hearing the complete melody. Every creative act is an act of trust. And your life is perhaps the greatest creative act you will ever participate in. This is why the future cannot be manufactured entirely through force. We often believe that if we think hard enough, worry long enough, or prepare long enough, we can eliminate uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is woven into the fabric of existence. It is not a flaw in reality. It is what allows reality to remain alive. A completely predictable universe would contain no discovery, no wonder, no possibility of genuine surprise. The unknown is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of everything new. You may also notice that when something significant is approaching, old memories begin resurfacing. Experiences you believed were long forgotten suddenly appear in your thoughts. This is not necessarily because you are moving backward. Sometimes the mind brings unfinished stories into the light because they are finally ready to be understood instead of merely remembered. Healing does not mean erasing the past. It means seeing the past without allowing it to dictate the present. There is tremendous freedom in realizing that you are not obligated to become the person others expect you to be. Much of human suffering comes from performing a role that no longer feels authentic. We wear masks because we hope they will earn acceptance. We hide our uncertainty because we assume confidence must always appear complete. Yet the more energy spent maintaining an image, the less energy remains for actually living. Authenticity requires courage because it cannot guarantee approval, but it offers something approval never can. Inner peace. Look carefully at the people who seem genuinely alive. Their lives are not necessarily free from difficulty. They experience loss, confusion, disappointment, and change just like everyone else. The difference is that they no longer resist every wave, that passes through them. They understand that emotions are visitors, not permanent residents. Joy arrives and departs. Sadness arrives and departs. Excitement arrives and departs. Fear arrives and departs. But the awareness witnessing each experience remains quietly unchanged. This is why clinging creates suffering. We try to hold happiness forever and push pain away forever. Yet both efforts are equally impossible. Life moves through cycles just as the seasons do. No amount of wishing can make spring remain forever, nor can winter prevent another spring from arriving. The wise person does not fight these rhythms. They participate in them with openness, recognizing that every season reveals something the others cannot. If this message has crossed your path today, perhaps it is because you have been standing at the edge of an invisible threshold. Thresholds rarely appear dramatic from the outside. They often resemble ordinary days filled with ordinary routines. Yet beneath those routines, something essential is shifting. You begin asking different questions. You become less interested in proving yourself and more interested in understanding yourself. You notice beauty in places you once ignored. You discover silence that no longer feels empty but deeply alive. The mind may interpret this slowing down as falling behind. Society constantly encourages comparison, urging you to measure your life against the timelines of others. But existence has never been a race. A flower blooming in autumn is not late, because another bloomed in spring. Each unfolds according to its own nature. Likewise, your journey cannot be compared with anyone else's, because no one else carries your exact experiences, your exact perspective, or your exact purpose. One of the greatest illusions is believing that fulfillment waits snorts somewhere in the future. We tell ourselves that peace will arrive after the next achievement, after the next promotion, after meeting the right person, after earning enough money, after finally becoming someone worthy. Yet every time one destination is reached, the mind quietly invents another. This endless pursuit is like chasing the horizon. No matter how fast you run, it continues moving ahead because it was never a place to arrive. It was an idea created by the restless mind. Real transformation begins the moment you recognize that completeness is not something you earn. It is something you uncover. Beneath the constant activity of thought, there already exists a profound stillness. Most people overlook it because they are searching for something more dramatic. But stillness has an extraordinary intelligence. It reveals solutions that cannot be forced. It restores energy without struggle. It reminds you that existence is not merely a problem to solve, but a mystery to experience. Think about how often the most meaningful moments in your life were completely unplanned. A stranger's kindness changed your perspective. a missed opportunity redirected your path towards something greater. A painful ending introduced people you otherwise would never have met. Looking backward, you can see an invisible thread connecting events that once seemed random. At the time they appeared chaotic. Now they reveal a quiet order that only hindsight could recognize. Perhaps the same is true of this moment. You cannot yet see why certain doors have remained closed. You cannot yet understand why some plans dissolved despite your best efforts. But it may be that life has been protecting possibilities too vast to fit within your previous expectations. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. Sometimes delay is preparation rather than denial. As awareness deepens, another remarkable shift occurs. You stop asking life to remove every obstacle and begin asking what each obstacle is trying to reveal. Challenges cease being enemies and become teachers. Difficult conversations reveal hidden fears, unexpected failures, expose attachments you did not realize you carried. Moments of loneliness uncover the relationship you have been avoiding with yourself. Every experience becomes meaningful because every experience points inward toward greater understanding. This does not mean pretending pain is pleasant or denying genuine hardship. It means recognizing that suffering often increases when the mind insists reality should have been different from what it is. Acceptance is not surrendering your ability to act. It is seeing clearly before taking action. Only a clear mind responds wisely. A mind clouded by resistance reacts impulsively. You may have noticed that when you stop trying to force life into your preferred shape, a surprising sense of ease begins to emerge. Opportunities appear naturally. Conversations become more genuine. Decisions feel less complicated. This is not because the external world has suddenly become perfect, but because your relationship with it has changed. You are no longer demanding certainty before allowing yourself to live. There is immense beauty in realizing that existence has never asked you to carry the entire universe upon your shoulders. The trees continue growing without your permission. The oceans continue moving without your supervision. Your heart has been beating faithfully since before you learned its name. There is an intelligence operating throughout life that functions without constant interference from the thinking mind. Trusting this intelligence does not make you passive. It allows your actions to arise from clarity rather than fear. And perhaps that is why this message feels strangely familiar instead of entirely new. Somewhere deep within, you have always known these truths. They were simply covered beneath years of noise, expectation, and distraction. What is approaching may not be something arriving from outside at all. It may be the gradual remembrance of what you have always been. patiently waiting beneath every thought, every fear, every ambition, and every story you have ever told yourself about who you believed you needed to become.